Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Nentrup with the EdSafe Artificial Intelligence Alliance. A core piece of the ESAA's work centers around the SAFE benchmarks framework. Today, we focus on the final letter in the SAFE acronym, which stands for efficacy. We use this framework as a means to engage various constituent groups across the education landscape to design an equitable outcome for all learners and improved working experiences for dedicated educators through innovative and emerging technology employing AI. And today, so excited to be joined by the co-founder of Assessments, Christina Heffernan, and my Alliance teammate, Dr. Russ Schilling. Welcome, Christina and Russ. Let's get started with your backgrounds. Do you mind just sharing with the audience a little bit, Russ, to kick us off?
Yes, I have a bit of a diverse background. So I spent 22 years as a military experimental psychologist in the Navy. I was a DARPA program manager during that time and did a lot of research and development around new technologies in psychological health, education, and training. When I finished my tour at DARPA, I left the military, went on and joined the Obama administration as the head of STEM education for the last 2 years of the administration. After that, I started working with several large major philanthropies on developing a new innovation research fund with them. And then was chief scientific officer for APA for a few years. So I've done a little bit of everything. I'm a bit of a policy wonk, but I really like cutting edge technologies.
How about you, Christina? Thanks, Russ.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm Christina Heffernan, and I'm the executive director of the Assessments Foundation. And I, too, have always been super interested in technology. So technology has always been around, something I've always liked to pick up. But I started as a math teacher. So out of college, I was a math major and then did tutoring while just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, joined the Peace Corps, fell in love with teaching, which is what I was trying to see if I would. And so I taught for 2 years in the Peace Corps, then I taught in inner city Baltimore. I taught in a private school in Pittsburgh and then in another school in Massachusetts. So I've taught in a lot of different places. And that kind of got me ready for my next career, which was working with my husband, Neil Heffernan, who is an AI professor in developing ed tech for students and teachers. So a lot of the ed tech AI work has been done for students, trying to make differences for students on that end. But our work has really been focused on also integrating a technology for teachers. And my background as a teacher has been super instrumental in that. In 2019, our project sort of grew from where my husband's a professor at WPI. We created a nonprofit. And so now we have our own little home for Assessments. And I'm the executive director. He's on the board. We still work intimately with what's going on at the cutting edge AI type of research that's being done at the university, but we're also trying to scale our product. One thing that is super important for efficacy is that you need to have products that are actually being used by lots and lots of students in order to get lots and lots of data to feed into the engine that is the AI. So my job is to make sure Assessments is used by many, many people, many teachers, and then their students. And Neil's helping work with the AI sort of development in the background to add to as features to our product.
Fantastic. You hint at a very important conversation topic that we'll get to in a second, which is how data feeds the model and informs and updates the algorithm to make AI autonomously perform more accurately. And given the shared experience that the three of us have, it sounds to me like we all have frontline experience where we see folks on the receiving end, whether they're in an intelligent tutoring system that Russ was a part of, or whether they were students in Pittsburgh or somewhere else in New England that you taught, or myself in greater Indianapolis. Being efficacious with our interventions, our assessment and learning design even, is incredibly important for all in education. And yet many times I think we feel like, that allegorical frog that's always jumping halfway closer to the wall and never quite reaches the wall. But hopefully we're getting extremely close to being more efficacious with the tech that we use. I wanted to ask both of you or ask Russ to respond to you in terms of what efficacy has looked like in his history professionally, let alone what it looks like in the present as it applies to the work that the Alliance is doing. So Russ, would you care to respond?
Yeah, it's been efficacy has been a major issue in my work since I joined the Navy, really. So, as we were developing simulations and training systems, really getting good efficacy data was tough. It tended to be the first thing that got cut out of a budget when you were building a simulation, and it really, in my estimation, has held the field back some. Now, intelligent tutoring systems have had a better track record on the military side with collecting data and really showing the efficacy. But I'd say, when I'm looking at the civilian world, since I've transitioned over, it's really much the same issue. So many companies are developing ed tech products that really don't have any efficacy data to back them up. It's holding us back as a field. And it really confuses teachers and administrators about what is good to buy and what they shouldn't buy. In the AI world now, I think it's going to be even more critical that we get that efficacy data based on large populations of diverse students than ever before, so that we don't have the AI bias involved. Plus, AI requires really high quality data sets, which, to be honest, I'm not sure that we've always collected efficiently and properly in the education field.
I can't disagree. Oh, did you have some more to say there, Russ? I'm sorry.
No. I was going to hand it over to Christina.
Yeah, like we sort of lived and breathed efficacy at our house. Like my husband is like the RCT king. And so he really believes in the RCT, the randomized controlled trial, as the proof, which, as you said, Russell, is very difficult to do because you have to recruit people to have a control group, and there has to wait and not use whatever the technology you're testing, whatever it is you're testing, and then the treatment group that has to use it for a while, and then you see if there's differences. So that RCT is a high bar, and it's hard to recruit schools to do something or not do something. It's hard enough to recruit schools to use whatever your product is, much less to tell them you have to wait. So we were lucky enough to get funded by the Institute for Educational Sciences to do such a study back in 2011. We started in 2011, finished in 2016. So it's a long haul. We had excellent results. And so we were able to show the efficacy of assessments. And that was exciting. But we've also tried to replicate it. And in this new environment, it's even harder right now to recruit schools to do this study. So the recruitment of schools and getting everybody on board to get excited about having efficacy data for products is super difficult. But because, like I said, this is a husband and wife team, and I'm sort of keep things rolling, but Neil's got the ideas, or I have ideas too, of course. But he also, while we were developing assessments, always had an underlying undertone of having small little trials inside of our platform. Yeah. So while we're willing to study the actual platform itself in a big 4-year project, we're also doing these little studies at the support level. So if a student gets a math problem, they might get support A or support B. And being able to study those is something that we've always done, and we're now sort of ramping that up. We've gotten funding to ramp that up. And that, I think, fits really well into this AI world. So we have reinforcement engines that are run by AI algorithms, and that's about as technical as I will get today. But those reinforcement engines use all of this smart AI stuff, and we've got thousands of students using these 2 different supports. And so you can deliver them using these algorithms. And that's actually a really great way to find efficacy in your product. So we're not really, and I guess maybe in your product is not really the right thing. It's in components of the product. And then the goal is that what we learn from studying those little components, other people can put into their products as well. And we can enhance learning engineering everywhere. And so that's one of the things that we've been focusing on. And I think it's a big place for AI, is to try to do it in these small areas, because your recruitment issues are maybe a little different.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and one thing I'd like to add too is it's a continuous process, which a lot of companies don't really realize. So, in my DARPA program I was running on STEM education games for kids, back in the day. One of the things that it did was the pedagogy actually improved over time. So it did analytics on how kids were playing the games, and then improved the gameplay and adapted the gameplay based on what it was seeing across the entire population.
Right.
And so I think that's the beauty of AI. The AI is going to get better over time, but that also means you have to keep on doing your efficacy data collections as you go along. So doing it once is not enough. It's a continuous circular process.
Well, we all know from our diverse yet similar or harmonizing experiences that relative to safety, accountability, and fairness, efficacy feels to the reader, the viewer, the listener, like an outcome of the other three, perhaps. But what I hear you both saying right now is that, like, if we want to get places faster, if we want to be more efficacious with our technology, particularly when it's on the front lines of learning outcomes, like really efficient interventions in instructional design, assessment design that yields what we were looking for, yet meets the student where they are, let alone the teacher who might be administrating a particular tool, if it's a teaching and learning app, right? The thing that we need to think about is that participation is what leads to that efficacy. And it sounds to me as though both of you are saying that from your own experience, whether it's the data sets, the trials, or just the diversity with that is contributing to the data sets, really is imperative, if not urgent. And perhaps just an overt call to action is that we need to hear from more people in order to be more efficacious. We need more folks at the table in order to inform that and help others get educated and on the same page, from procurement of the right tools and participation, whether it's a clinical study, to actually implementing it as something that's right for an entire classroom, grade level building, and so forth. What are some other things along that timeline from, if we want to end up here, it starts with getting a little bit better educated on the front end as what it means to participate in such a study, or what it means to do a trial with a tech vendor that's employing AI in a certain way. Topics for me include like being overt about equity, being overt about transparency, and whether it's data interoperability or data ownership. Like, all those things seem to be contributing to the confusion, or maybe the reluctance to participate, because it feels like a black box. So there's a lot I just churned out there, but I hope it provokes a response from both of you. Christina, would you like to respond?
Yeah. So you hit on participation. So that's first. Like, you can't run any study unless you have people participating. But I think Russ hit on willing to put energy into the next step. So you have to design what you're comparing. You have to make a decision. Okay, we think this is great, but we're going to test it against something else. And that's on the product end. Participation is running along with that, because someone has to participate in having those two things tested. Then you also need to take time, participation again, in collecting measures about whether the thing you were testing was efficacious. So those measures are going to have to happen. You have to design those measures. They have to be fair measures. They have to be measuring what it is you're testing. And so those pieces together are what make these efficacy trials. They can run rapid, they can happen fast, but they have to be well designed and well planned. You need good project management, but you also need to remember just getting it out there is not the only thing. And so if you don't do that, and it ends up being a win. It's a win for the product because you get a better product, and you're surprised at what you might learn, and you might find that but you have to have the participation, and you have to have the willingness of the community to do it. We do it in medicine. We didn't do it in medicine 100 years ago. We didn't. And so we do it now. And everyone knows, oh yeah, placebo. Oh yeah, we got to do an RCT. We can't just throw that out there. And we don't do it in education. But so we need that understand, and because participation's all the way along.
Yeah, and I'd say one of the things that I've seen companies and other organizations get wrong is they come up with a product and then they start thinking about an efficacy study, and it should be the other way around. The first thing you should be thinking about is, what am I measuring? What is it that I want to measure in an efficacy study that gets me to the goal of my product? And then you start developing the product. All too often, it goes the other way around, and that's usually, in my estimation, a little disastrous. So it's best to put that thought in very early in the program.
Yeah,
I agree. What are some other thoughts as it applies to product design and road mapping? Because perhaps the garden variety listener who enjoys certain tools in their classroom might not know the sort of prerequisite work that goes into designing a product, and presuming the best outcomes for a lot of these vendors when they make conservative decisions about features and the data that's collected and so forth. Let's just stay in that product design mode for a little bit, because I think it would be helpful for classroom teachers and parents to know a little bit more about what goes into developing a high quality ed tech product.
Yeah. Did you want to go first, Christina?
Sure. Like, we're looking to make sure that we get interesting ideas from teachers, the people we talk to, but we also want to take ideas and we want to validate. If we have ideas or we've tried out ideas, we want to have some validation. And then we need to find those simple little things that we need to like tweak and fix to make it usable. I would say we're in a very different space though in 2022 than we were, in 2016, because our users, the people participating that you were talking about, are all so much more ready and willing to use tech, and it's part of their sort of daily life now. Every teacher has a cell phone, so every teacher is used to clicking on a screen and doing these things. That was not the case, even 8 years ago, 6 years ago. And so, so we're ready to do more things, but there's also a lot out there. And so I think people need to think and say yes to participating in learning. And it's okay that I'm going to be part of something like that, and look for people who are trying to do that.
So agree.
Yeah. And I think it's, the questions districts and teachers should be asking of the vendors of these products is straight up. Where did you get your data from? Who did you test on this? Did your students look like my students, basically? And also, did you involve teachers and learning scientists in the development of your product? Surprisingly, you're going to find out that a lot of companies probably haven't done as much of that work as they should have. And so, really thinking through the right questions to ask the vendors, I think, is very important.
It's crucial, and I do hope that folks understand, again, whether they're a parent, even a student, but particularly teachers and administrators, I want to make sure that they do understand that ed tech vendors, whether they're using AI or not, but particularly, like Christina said, from here forward, that they are open to feedback, and they log that feedback, and they priority rank it based on demand, which may not necessarily be the best, but it's definitely democratic. It may not be the most efficacious forward path to reducing iterations of a particular piece of software or some other solution. But I feel like the bar is set higher when it comes to the data that we're collecting, and making sure that folks understand that we are in this space doing our best to keep people safe, hence our framework at the Alliance, but with the outcome being that we want efficacy. So we're about out of time, believe it or not, but I'd like to just to give each of you one more chance for sort of just a wild card comment when it comes to efficacy or its implications upon other parts of the framework or the work of the Alliance. And Christina, if you'll take us down the home stretch here, and then we'll wrap up with Russ. Yeah,
I think it's a balance between trying to find something that really works for you, and also being willing to, this is for the participant, being willing to work with people who are trying new things. And then I think for the product developers, you just can't set aside the time that it takes to plan and execute studies, and have it be a high bar, and do the RCTs so that you really are the randomized controlled trial. So you really are testing the efficacy that loses out on some of the just, I think it worked great. And look, I had 3 people say they loved it, and so you really need to keep your bar high.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, and I guess I would end by kind of throwing it onto the government side as well. So I've been a government program manager across a number of organizations, and it's really up to the people who are funding some of these programs to look at the types of teams that that are coming forward, and to make sure that the proposals have the talent in learning science and in teaching experience, in addition to the computer science and in all of the other areas. Yeah. So, I think we really need to see policies put in place. And that's part of what we're working with on the EdSafe AI Alliance, that makes sure that these teams and the process of putting together the software programs really, that if you're buying something that's ed tech related, you should be confident that it's going to work for you. And I think we can help do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And having been on both sides of that equation as a district employee and working for an ed tech company, see that as definitely a really promising forecast and runway for us to work together on. And to that end, that is, as Russ said, that's why the Alliance exists. So I want to thank both of you for your time and your perspectives. I know we could go on, and hopefully in the future, I get to see
we will
back on the show. Yes. Yes. Well, we'll just have to do another episode together. But thank you so much, Christina, and best of luck with assessments, and to your husband, Neil, and the work that he's doing in higher ed. And Russ, thank you so very much for your time together today on the show. That concludes actually the SAFE webinar series. We're super excited to get to this point talking about efficacy. And if you haven't already subscribed to the newsletter or considered joining the Alliance, regardless of what your role is as an ed tech vendor, a concerned parent, an inquisitive student, or a teacher who has something to share with us, we very much would love to have your involvement and see you at the table sharing, so that we can continue to get the message out there. We may be doing more episodes in the near future, but for now, again, my thanks to all the guests in this series. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you again sometime soon.